Funny enough, I actually didn't hear the audio from that for the first time. Did you guys hear
I
the
did.
audio from it?
Yeah.
I heard
Huh.
it.
Yeah.
I must be deaf. That's crazy. We're live as well. Welcome back,
Wait.
guys, to Chatooine. We're talking. We had a little change in schedule. I was actually supposed to be working tonight, so we were going to talk about the Mandalorian season 3, but I changed. Like, I was able to give away my shift, thank God. So we changed the topic a little too late to rechange it again. So today we're going to be talking about the volume that Lucasfilm has been using for a while now, and not only just like the volume, but like the entire thing kind of around it, because this all started with ILM, and I believe this started with John Favreau when he was doing the Lion King. He did the Jungle Book, and I think he did the Lion King right after, and that really kind of started his, I guess, transformation of this technology into what George Lucas has always been striving for. So, Lunga, Palpamemes, since you two are kind of spearheading this topic, and you guys brought this up, start us out and just kind of tell us how you feel about the volume, why you think it's good and bad, and what has kind of led to this discussion. Because ultimately, in this podcast, we're going to talk about what Lucasfilm is doing wrong with the volume and how they are kind of overusing it at this point. But give us your summarization of the volume so far, your feelings, your likes, your dislikes.
I was more forgiving than Palpamemes was. I remember that he was really complaining about the lighting and this and that. I kept saying, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. And you were complaining as well. So it's really not that bad. But I know, again, I'm not a rewatcher, so I don't go back and rewatch the whole series again. But I'll watch clips and I'll watch parts on YouTube of things. And after seeing it again, I have to pull back a little bit on my it's fine. I do notice some of the flaws that were not as prevalent because I was more concentrating in the story. And this thing, it's like, it's got to be really bad to pull me out of it. I don't necessarily notice these things right away, which is why, like, but for me, it has to pull me out of the story. If the story is intriguing enough to me, that stuff doesn't really bother me when I'm watching. It doesn't pull me out of the story. So for this, it didn't bother me enough to pull me out. However, again, when I watched it again and I watched clips of it again, I noticed that it's a little off on some things. But it depends on how and where, though, right? Because in Mando, very rarely was it off. Maybe it's because of that grittiness we talked about and the kind of worlds they were on. Like it looked off in the Jack Black and Lizzo thing because it was so colorful and bright and everything that was going on there. So it kind of looked off there in that place. But how they use it, I think, matters, and that's the issue. And I think this article kind of brings up too, especially with how they prepare for it. They don't really know that. I don't think they really have a textbook. They're just kind of thrown it. See here, figure this out. Trial by fire. But yeah, I definitely think I don't think they need to stop using it, but I do need to think they need to reevaluate the when and how they use it.
I can see that a lot. I think that Lucasfilm was put in a very particular situation with this because ILM, being probably the biggest visual and special effects company that we have in filmmaking, especially in the past 30 to 40 years they've been doing things, they've constantly pushed the envelope. They've constantly been ahead of the game. And this is one of those examples of it. But what comes with this is the downside of overusing it. So, like with Mandalorian season 1, like Lunga was just saying, it was kind of like a test of, let's see what we can do with this technology. This is brand new. Let's make this unique, engaging, and they did it very well. One of the biggest benefits that I've noticed with this is the lighting. The lighting is one of the biggest benefits to the volume of you no longer have to go back and try to think, oh, well, how would the sun set here? And how's the lighting work here? And like this cave and all that. The volume kind of covers a lot of that. But then I think because it costs so little to do the volume compared to doing blue and green screen sets, they've over relied on it to the point where you get to like the Kenobi series, where there's a lot of stuff looking back that you're like, oh my God, this is so obvious that it's all in the volume, that it becomes kind of like a lazy way to do things. And I think that's ultimately the issue that I have with the volume at this point, is that it's allowed the worst of like George Lucas to come through. Because you remember when George Lucas was making the prequels and he was doing the digital technology, and like the first episode, it was like, oh, okay, like this is kind of new, a lot of special effects, digital technology, Jar Jar. Okay, cool. Episode 2 came out. It was even more of pushing the envelope because now we're using digital cameras for the first time ever.
Everything,
Big budget,
everything. He wanted to use every toy.
And then we get to
little
the
too far
third
in a few
one.
places.
He went way
Yeah.
too far in a few places. And then we get to the third one, and it's overabundance of digital stuff to the point where George isn't even leaving his director's chair. And I think that's where Lucasfilm has gone to today, where season 1 of Mandalorian, okay, let's see how we can use this volume. Season 2 of Mandalorian, all right, now that we know what we're doing, let's keep using this in the best way possible. And then for some reason, after Mandalorian season 2, you get Book of Boba, you get Kenobi, you get Mando season 3, and now you get Ahsoka. And all of them, I think, are produced a lot worse, or at least the way they look and the way they utilize the volume. It's not as good as the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. It's not as good as Andor. Andor did use the volume. I know Tony Gilroy said that they didn't use it, or maybe used it a lot, but they did use it, of course. But they found a way to actually implement practical effects and the sets and all that stuff and use the volume. So I think there's an over reliance on the volume today by Lucasfilm and ILM. And I think that's where the issue really does come in. And you're using different, DPs, director of photographies, every single series. So you have some of these DPs who,
and they're
know
all
how to
learning
use the
it each
volume.
time.
Every single one. They're all having to do it in such different ways where it's like when you think of it through the volume, they're having to do it through like the VR headset and everything. And that's how they do their first shot and what they think. And then they go on set and it's like, oh, we're reshooting it. But then there's the things of when you actually go to set where it's like, okay, when we were doing this in pre-production, it actually looked pretty good from this shot. But now that we're actually here, it would actually benefit us if we raise the camera up and just a little bit of height. And then that changes a lot with the volume. It's not as bad as it was with like green screen and blue screen where you have to change the entire set. But with the volume, I've noticed that you can't get as much dynamic range with your shots. You can't do a whole 180 on the volume that you probably could in an actual practical set, or even using green screen and blue screen. At the end of the day, the volume is a big fucking cube, and inside that cube is a big fucking bowl. It's a big bubble. And when you confine the filmmaking to just that, there is limitations. It has expanded a lot, but there is certain limitations of depth and immersing you in this world that I think has become very obvious in the past mainly the past 2 years.
Like in Andor, in Luthen's shop, I know they had physical stuff on the pedestals and stuff, but wasn't a lot of that volume too for his shop?
It's a huge misconception. A lot of people, and I found news articles doing research on this of reliable reporters saying that Andor didn't use the volume, but that's not true at all. It absolutely did use the volume, and in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Well, Palpatine, give us your thing on the volume.
I've got a lot of words. I did my due diligence and I made a little note list. I got pros and I've got cons. Despite popular belief, I don't hate the volume by any means. I think it's a fantastic piece of technology. Once again, ILM, furthering the technology of cinema, and I give them props to that. It's a very, very creative and bold idea. So was the digital effects of the prequel trilogy. Very bold, but as Lucas has said himself, he went a little too far. And I think we're in the similar situation as we were in the early 2000s.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Exactly, George. And that's the problem I think we can agree on. They're going too much. Will it get better in due time? Absolutely. So I did some research, and even the cinematographer for is it either House of the Dragon talked about the volume. And I found a lot of articles from a lot of cinematographers and all that talking about it, and they all consistently said the same thing. The pros of the volume is, one, it's cheaper, right? You have this 3D environment probably made in something like Blender or something. And what's cool about it is it does move with the camera. It's very intelligent in terms of it being a technology. I think the best thing you can get out of the volume is unique lighting. So something I noticed in the Star Wars shows where it looks fantastic in is the cockpit scenes, right? Ahsoka used this a lot, and they had a lot of unique cockpit scenes where they're in hyperspace, and we had full scenes where they're just stuck in hyperspace talking. Getting the reflective lighting in standard blue screen is very, very difficult to do that. And so what the volume does is it allows to get that natural lighting on them. The next thing that I saw a lot of people say is this really only works well for soft lit scenes. So, for instance, dusk and dawn scenes are perfect for this. When it comes to daytime scenes or high lit scenes, I think that's when it's more noticeable. It's just harder to blend it. And then another con that I saw some people say is you have to plan these shots in these environments months upon months in advance from principal photography. So it's almost like, yeah, it might be cheaper and it seems efficient, but some, cinematographers are acting like it's not as efficient as it could be because there is so much planning. And the issue with that is once you do have a plan, you have to stick with that. As Only said, it's like you can't just take the shot and be like, no, I think it needs to look better from this angle. You really don't have a lot of wiggle room to do that. Another thing I don't think it's best for is fight scenes because the shots are pretty static for a lot of fight scenes with Star Wars using them. As Only pointed out, you can't do a whole lot of movement with them. You're going to say
Depends. That Ahsoka Morgan Elsbeth fight in Mando.
It was horizontal, right?
Perfect. But that was a side scroller.
Look for that shot time.
But you look at that, and then you look at what they did with Kenobi, with Vader and Obi-Wan. I know everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's such a powerful scene seeing, them relive what we've already seen before." I remember when they fought the first time, and I remember when they fought after this. But when you look at that, it's horribly filmed. I mean, it's shaky camera. It's moving.
Well, and the environment is trash, but that might be a consequence
of goes back to the lighting. The lighting in that scene is fucking horrible. Oh, well,
you're talking the final fight, right?
Yes, the final fight.
They wanted a lot of lightsaber glow. They wanted everything lit by the lightsaber glows.
That's what they did. Yes, I get the artistic decision, but it looked horrible. And this whole I love that you see the blue and Anakin's face and the red and yes, I understand symbolism.
In my opinion, it's too much. It just accumulated his entire face, right? There was no balance of light, right? There was no depth to it. It looked like it was just blue.
Turn down the filter a little bit. It's how hard is it?
I know. I mean, really, turn down the brightness of those NeoPixel Lucasfilm. But
that's going to cost us $10,000. We can't afford that. All right, you're keeping the fucking lightsaber lighting.
Yes, those heavy lightsabers, according to Palpatine memes.
The reason we brought this up too is because Dave Filoni made some comments on this because he, of course, is still doing his movie at the time of now. And he was asked, are you going to be using the volume a lot? And I'm actually pretty happy with his answer where he said, we're going to use it if we feel we need to use it. Right. But he's not going to rely on it. And that's something I think they did is they relied a little bit too much on it. Right. It's a new technology and I get it. You want to use it as much as possible because it's new, it's unique, it's bold, it has its place. But I think Dave Filoni's a perfectly fine director without the use of the volume. I think after watching episode 5 of Ahsoka, rewatching it a few times, the episode is directed phenomenally. There's some beautiful shots in it that aren't volume, or at least they don't look volume. Maybe they are, and it's just so well done that I can't notice. So I'm personally happy that Dave's already acknowledging that, okay, the volume has its place and it has, in areas where it doesn't work. And I think it's a good thing. And I think Lucasfilm are aware of that.
That opens up another question because we know that Dave is relatively new to directing live action.
Sure.
Right.
Relatively. He is new.
Right. And relatively. I mean, come on. He's done 3 seasons of Mando that he's integrally been part of. He did all of Ahsoka. He's at this point, he's still relatively new. He's not brand new.
2017.
Has he merited his own Star Wars movie though? No.
Yeah. I know. We gotta get Palpatine's sequel entry into here. Yes, he was on set with them during the sequels to help learn. Kathleen Kennedy brought him in so he can learn live action stuff on the sets of these movies.
Ryan Johnson had him hold a boom mic.
Yeah.
He sat in a chair.
But because he's relatively new, and then almost a George Lucas thing, right? George Lucas couldn't wait for these toys because he's like, this makes things so much easier, right? If I had it, and because he's new, and this volume came out right when he was diving into live action directing. Could it be possibly the over reliance on it that we saw in Ahsoka is because he's at this point, because he's so new, had more experience with the volume than practical sets.
I see where you're coming from,
Yeah,
but my
yeah,
question
I
to
mean,
you is:
that
did
makes
Ahsoka have too much volume? I mean, genuine question. Because there's only a handful of shots that really stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, the Ahsoka show looks really great most of the time. There's just a few shots, throughout the show where I'm
Well,
like,
like the bright ones you meant, the very beginning, the temple, right? It was such a brightly lit. Everything was white, and it was so bright.
Here's the thing, Lunga, which surprised me. That was mostly a set.
It was?
What, the temple?
No.
Not the inside, but the outside. They built a whole set.
The outside? I mean, I could see the pillars that she was running around, obviously.
No.
But
yeah.
What they do with the volume, though, a lot of the times is like, so you have the entrance to the volume. And what they'll do is where the volume kind of ends, that's where they will build the set. And they put a lot of set pieces in there and then use the volume to kind of mask into the rest in the background.
But that's the point I'm making, though. The way that the sky was and the lighting, because the volume is determining a lot of the lighting, too.
Absolutely.
That scene is lit.
Well, that's the thing. It's
so when you have that,
you can't change it.
When you have that white set pieces, those white columns and pillars and temples up, and the sky is so bright, you know what I mean? It's washed out. That's what I got out of it. It felt washed out.
It reminds me of when I was editing my video, I was going through Phantom Menace, and I don't know how it's taking me this long to catch it, but the Phantom Menace does something so damn weird with their blue screen, and there's just this odd bright blur going off the side of the subject character. Like I was watching when Qui-Gon was telling them, "Hey, I've encountered a Sith Lord, I'm pretty sure." If you just look at Qui-Gon, there's just this odd bright white like blur of light just going down the side of his body. And
you didn't understand the foreshadowing. That was part of the story. He was going to become a Force ghost. He was going to die.
Yeah.
That was foreshadowing. He was going to be a Force ghost
already.
Do you remember what Force ghosts are? I remember.
It's been too long since I've seen one. I don't really know, actually.
No, I will say though, I do think Ahsoka did use the volume a little too much. I mean, we've specifically me, very much so, did not like the way Anakin came off in that ending of Episode 5 and his little CGI looking face and everything. Like the lighting was horrible.
Well, hold on. End of Episode 5 or the end of Episode 4?
4 or 5, whatever the fuck. It's all the same.
It matters because for some reason they look completely different. So we got to.
They look vastly different.
Yeah. I got you. I agree.
That was
with
my
that.
issue. That the end of Episode 4, whichever one that he was like, "Hey, Snips,"
and he does the awkward smile.
Yeah, and I know fucking you prequel fans were jerking your dicks off to that.
Well, first of all, everybody, when Ahsoka was announced, and there was rumors that the Hayden was made it. Every other tweet was snip, 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 snips. They were just waiting for that. So
yeah, I know.
Can you really call it a member berry when they were begging for it? I mean, it was literally what they wanted.
I've seen the Clone Wars. I remember Clone Wars, okay? And he doesn't call her Snips every fucking scene. He's like, "Hey, Ahsoka, you need to take this seriously." Or something.
Called her Snips.
You know what she does do every scene, though? Crosses her arms in Clone Wars.
I remember
yeah, I guess you had a problem with
normally. That. I don't remember her like leaning on the edge just to cross. It seems like Ahsoka will stand up to cross her arms.
You need to change your name to Star Wars Hypocrisy because this is getting ridiculous, man.
Why? Because I don't like to member. I remember membering. Right?
Okay. Back to subject. I do want to point out. Hold on. I do want to point out. We were talking about real white and bright scenes, and I think we can agree. And fuck you if you disagree. The cinematographers agree that it works best for dully lit and soft light lit scenes. I will say though, the Anakin Obi-Wan flashback scene in Kenobi was very bright, and that did use volume plus stage set. What did you guys think about the look of that? Because I honestly didn't think it looked too bad. It wasn't great, but I think it looked fine.
I have a reason in that too, because the prequels had a very distinct color palette. Yes. There was a lot of tans, a lot of not like Tatooine desert tans, but you know what I mean. But a lot of tans, browns, that the whole Jedi kind of motif. Yeah. You know what I mean? A lot of the set pieces, the scenery, there was a lot of that, unless they moved away from Jedi and they went to, Naboo, which everything was shiny and chrome and all this other kind of stuff. But anything involving Jedi stuff in Jedi Temple, it had a lot of these earthy tones to it. So it's even though it's volume, I don't think it gave us a lot of that over brightness because the tones of the set was more earthy.
What are you looking up?
I'm looking up a picture.
Tones were in the prequels.
Shut up, man. I'm looking up a picture of the volume. I'm not going to waste my time doing this. Just continue on, whatever. It doesn't look as good as I thought it did, all right?
I would say is like with Ahsoka, I do think there was a slight overuse of the volume. One of my biggest ones, I remember when I was telling you guys about the first couple episodes, Lothal, and I get, Rebels, and it looks kind of clean and everything. But sometimes there's like a limit and there's a difference in making these sets feel like a world that you want to visit or have been in, and then making them just feel like sci-fi. And I think that's where a lot of my complaints with Ahsoka kind of come in, is the glossiness and how clean everything is. Sabine's little house where that little tower is at, not a speck of dirt on anything. No, nothing's gross. The floors.
The inside was grimy. There was parts and pieces everywhere. It looked like a workshop. It looked grimy inside. I don't know what you're talking about.
Inside. I'm talking about outside. Like when you see her fight Shin, the ground has not a speck of dust on it. And
I see what
you're
saying.
Full of fucking critters and like it's stuff like that where it's like, okay, you're losing the immersion. Yes, you're immersing the actors, but we as an audience, I'm not feeling as immersed in the stuff, because when it's so glossy and it's so clean, it doesn't have that rough and gruff, tough kind of Star Wars feeling that when you watch the original trilogy, it is very distinct. It is the original trilogy, and it's funny because I remember when George Lucas was talking about it, he said, I wanted to like we're making a documentary in this other world. The original kind of captures that. All the other Star Wars movies since then haven't really caught that feeling, and even the shows more so. And I think one of the biggest examples, I think, of the volume not being used in the best capacity is everyone's favorite show. You guys remember Book of Boba Fett? I remember Book of Boba Fett.
I wish I didn't.
You guys remember the speed people, the little biker gang? I remember them. I don't know if you do, but I remember.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I think
I love the guy who says member so much. Every complaint he has is because he members the OT too much. That's the fucking problem.
I was going to bring that up for me.
Star Wars member the OT?
Anytime you have a complaint about how something looks, you're like, well, the OT look like this.
Yes, exactly. Remember the OT?
Yeah, we're clean.
Yeah,
they were. And again, Lothal, there's a precedent. Lothal isn't a new thing they just invented, right? It's in the Clone Wars it's in Rebels, and it was pretty clean in Rebels. I mean, it was how it looked.
Yeah, everything was kind of clean for them.
But it was animation, and everyone complained about the animation in Rebels when it came out.
Here we go. Oh, animation's automatically clean. Stop it. This is how it works.
Animations make things spec-free.
When you make it live action, I'd like to make it look a little bit real. And I feel like some of the stuff is unrealistic. But
I mean, is there a thing about future? Yeah, but how do you explain? Remember the OTs? Remember the Empire? Remember spotless, shiny, not a fingerprint in sight of the black glossy and white glossy stuff all over anything Imperial? Did you ever think that they literally have those little droids that go around cleaning things? That's all they do, is just run around all day cleaning things.
Yes,
so that's why things can be shiny.
But it was a stark comparison between, okay, you have the Rebels where everything is grimy and dirty. It basically, the rest of the galaxy is in
because they were poor. They didn't have money for droids to do shit. That's why.
There's kind of a symbolism between it. Where nowadays in Star Wars, everything's clean. Everything's bright, flashy, sci-fi-ish. And everything.
The entire ending of Ahsoka took place on Peridea, which is a complete just graveyard of a planet.
Yeah. And it wasn't a clone of Tatooine, right? It was grayish rather than brown.
Yeah, Jakku was so uninspiring. It's like Tatooine.
Even that I'll agree with.
The personality. I don't know. I feel like when you look at these past couple seasons of Star Wars live action shows, excluding Andor, you can definitely see an overuse of the volume. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, what can you even say or do at this point? They're going to hone their craft. They're not going to stop using the volume. It saves them so much money. Well,
I think
Goldman
we need
doesn't
to
know what he's talking
clarify.
about half the time.
I think we all like the volume to an extent, right? When it comes to reflective shots, like, so just perfect example, Din Djarin in The Mandalorian is literally basically an aluminum chrome person, right? You know how hard it is to get lighting when it comes to digital effects?
Yeah.
Whereas with the volume,
that's one of the things they
reflects
said for the
perfectly.
volume.
Yeah, that's
They
what I'm
said
saying.
he was going to be the hardest part of doing that. Is his armor?
Yeah, I want to
is
make
gonna be a
clear,
hard
I
issue.
like the volume. It's a brilliant piece of technology. The problem is, much like the prequels, they're overusing it, right? They're not doing a good balance of it, but I do have faith that they're going to learn. It's just going to take some time.
So, are you saying that it's stylistically designed to be that way, but we can diminish the effects? It's a
I'm not
George
gonna
Lucas
answer that.
Phantom
I'm not
Menace
gonna answer
quote. That's
that
one of
question.
the best quotes.
You see, I mean, the reason why your too clean argument, I don't like mixing that with the discussion of the volume, because while yes, the volume
That's fair.
produces what you while the volume produces what you consider to be too clean, that's a style choice. I even if they didn't have the
That's not a
volume, I
consequence
think
of
they
the
would
volume
get
itself. That's just,
right. I think if they're doing practical sets, they would have still made those practical sets just as clean. They just would have been practical instead of, you see what I'm saying? So I think that's, like Pelmy said, that's a style choice rather than a consequence of the volume. It just
Well,
becomes more
I like
noticeable with the volume.
I do like that conversation around like the grittiness and the clean on it. Like even this comment. What about Cloud City from Empire Strikes Back? It was pretty clean city. It didn't break my immersion. That's a very good point. And I think the reason that works though is because throughout the Empire Strikes Back, you see Hoth and you see how rough it is, and you see the wires coming out of the ice walls and everything. Like you can tell they're not living in the best circumstances. You go to the Empire, things are far cleaner. Then Han and Leia and Chewbacca get on the ship. It's it's the Millennium Falcon. It's dirty. It's lived in. It's rough and tough. They go from asteroid to all that stuff, and then they go into the city that Lando works at, and he runs it, and it's a city in the clouds. It's supposed to be, like Lunga was saying, stylistically designed to be that way.
But you keep pointing to the rebels, okay? And we know they're the Viet Cong. Okay, that's what Lucas vision. They're the Viet Cong. That's what the rebels are. And the Viet Cong were living in the jungles, not taking showers in months. Okay, and they were living. That's what the rebels. That's what he was trying to say. That's why we had this amazing dichotomy between what it looked like with the Empire that was with all the money and all the power and everything was spotless, and you had the rebels who were living, hand to mouth. And that's why things were so grimy, because they were like the Viet Cong living in the jungles fighting this guerrilla warfare. That difference was to tell a story. And it is important because it was telling that story. And most of the stuff we're seeing now, there's no rebels, dude. And it's telling a story of, like it or not, leading into the sequel trilogy, which is a era of, we're the ones in power now. We can make everything great and beautiful. We can have all the cleanliness, beautifulness that the Empire had without the oppression, right? And you don't even need any military. And that's why they were caught so off guard, because they wanted to make everything nice and pretty for everybody again, instead of protecting their citizenry. And that's why the First Order came about. So there were no rebels at this time. So it was a rebuilding part, see? And you see certain areas where it's still kind of grimy. Some places that might have been destroyed that they're still kind of rebuilding, shipyards. And you'll see that in certain areas, or places that might be extremely poor. Okay? To that point, Tatooine is still relatively poor, right? That's what bothered me about Book of Boba Fett. Those stupid bicycles just made no fucking sense in Book of Boba Fett, because that area is still like, oh, well, they could have just brought him in from Coruscant. Come on. There's never been anything in the history of fuck them like that on Tatooine. And suddenly for the show, randomly, they got 4 fucking hijacked fucking Vespas from fucking Coruscant. Get out of here. That's why it was so didn't fit, you see? And there, I get it. But like Lothal's always been decent during the Empire. And the point is, he stopped them from being destroyed. And they were actually run by the Empire for a little while. So it was run like an imperial place. So it was clean. So I can understand those stylistic choices for that.
So only you bring up a good point about like how there should be a good contrast take, for instance, your example of Empire Strikes Back with Hoth to Bespin, and I agree. Lunga's got a good point to back it that there's a story with that. But I would argue Ahsoka had a perfect contrast of that. Sure, Lothal is pretty clean, and then you have Coruscant, which wasn't too present, but it was still there. But then you have Ciatos, which is a pretty rugged kind of graveyard planet, and then you literally have like 3 episodes straight on this graveyard of a planet. So I don't know. I don't think Ahsoka was too clean at all. I think it had a good contrast and balance of the two sides of things.
Yeah, no, my complaint with Ahsoka on the cleanliness is mostly always been around the New Republic and a lot of that stuff involving them.
Does that not make sense though? I mean, they took over the entire galaxy. I mean, they basically became from nothing to something, that something being control over the entire galaxy. I mean, they're going to have money to make things pretty sparkly.
Well, they claim that they don't have a lot of money to do a lot of shit, though. I mean, they're always like, oh, well, we can't help you out over here. We can't help you out over there. Thrawn's returning.
Well,
we don't have the money for that.
Dumbasses, but
you brought up
dumbasses, yet they built
Thrawn's uniform wasn't sparkling white, right? The stormtroopers were grimy because they were on this planet. Okay, yeah, they're very grimy. Okay.
Look at Mando season 1. Remember the stormtroopers that showed up with Werner Herzog and everything? Look how rough and gruff they look. The Mandalorian season 1, and I think Mandalorian in general has the best representation of this with Navarro. Navarro starts off as very rough and dirty and kind of like Mos Eisley-esque. And then as time goes on, Navarro's a nice, clean city. But even with it being clean and looking okay in Mando season 3 in terms of this looks like a functioning society, it looks real. It looks like people have lived there. That is a lot of my problems with, I would say, a lot of the modern Star Wars content of some of the stuff doesn't look like anyone's ever lived there before. It looks like they built a set, said, go to town, and that's really it. And that's where my issues kind of start to come out with some of this. Because let's look at Mando season 2. You had the episode about Boba Fett. They didn't use the volume for that. They filmed that in California. And it looked horrible.
It looked pretty damn bad.
And now we can blame that on Robert Rodriguez, which we will.
I mean, I just blame where they filmed it at.
100%. I blame him for everything that went wrong with that show. Basically, which means the entire show.
Besides one episode.
Wait,
that was not a Robert Rodriguez. No, I am convinced. I am convinced that was shot for the fucking Mando season 3, and they just took it and plugged it in. I'm telling you, that was not bullshit. That was Mando season 3. That was not.
You're saying that Book of Boba Fett was originally supposed to be 6 episodes, like Kenobi. Fair point.
No. I probably had the same ones, and they probably took out episodes and put those in because they realized they fucked up.
Yeah, maybe. I don't care. I just hated it.
Yeah, Book of Boba was not that good, but that's one of the series that did utilize the volume a lot, and throughout the entire time, people did have some complaints about the way the show looked and the way the show felt. And, not all of it can just be writing. Some of it is the cinematographer. Some of it is the, director, like Robert Rodriguez, who was the showrunner of that entire series. The ultimate question is, where is the line of you're using it too much or you're not using it enough? You don't want to, everything's in moderation. So you have to use the volume in moderation. And my fear is that going forward, especially with these 3 new movies coming out, if they try to make these as cheap as possible with the volume, that could really hinder the quality of some of these Star Wars movies. Because you got to think, whatever the next Star Wars movie is, that's going to be the first Star Wars movie to use the volume. That the sequels did nothing for the revolutionization of film. They didn't change anything about film other than making shitty movies.
Yeah, but we really movie making and TV show making are vastly different, and so we can't say, oh, they're going to do the same kind of stuff.
But they used the volume for the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. I mean,
it
looked good. It looked very good.
Yeah, they used it a few scenes
because it was used as a tool. It wasn't the set. It was used as a tool. That's
true.
Movie making uses things as tools. It's not the same. And again, it depends on who the director is too, right? You know what I mean? There's a difference between directing TV and directing a movie.
I want to bring up, we talk about this. They're for sure going to use the volume. Dave Filoni already said he'll use the volume if fits. But my question is, are they really going to give Dave Filoni in the end $220 million to make a Star Wars movie. A guy who's never directed a live action film before. The one movie he did make bombed in the box office. So
Hey,
are
yeah,
they going to
that's
give
not,
him a
that's
good
not a fair
budget?
movie to give him though. That's not a
Oh
fair
no,
movie
I'm
because
just saying.
was
You okay?
well,
Here's the thing.
mixed
Only
into one.
I'm a stockholder, right? I'm most important to Disney, right? I'm gonna see this guy. Oh, Dave Filoni. Oh,
Motherfucker
well.
owns one share.
Actually, I own 0 at this point. Hey, I can still get in on the earnings calls. All right.
He can vote, can't he? That chair means something. But
Listen, my point
glad you brought
is,
up
all right, I've got 10,000 shares in Disney, right? And I've held on to this for 7 years now. Okay. And I'm saying, okay, we got this Ray movie. Oh, this lady's directing. Okay, well, who's Dave Filoni? He's never really made anything before. Is Disney? It'd be really bold of Disney to give the man $200-something million.
Well, they have to though. I mean, first of all, this movie
Do they?
cost
Could it be a
$5
Disney
Yes.
Plus special?
No,
It's
God,
who he
no.
surrounds himself with. Number one,
Absolutely,
guaranteed.
I agree.
Guaranteed. Favreau's going to executive produce it. You know that's going to fucking.
I hope he is. I pray to God he is, because they were
Yeah,
great.
he's
Guaranteed
not, then
Favreau's
I'm
gonna-
mentally checking out of the movie because Favreau.
He's going to executive produce.
For all the claims of Dave Filoni's greatness, his greatest heights have been The Mandalorian, seasons 1 and 2. All of that with Jon Favreau over his shoulder, being like, "Well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do." But I'm glad you brought up Dave Filoni. And that article that he was talking about, they were saying they were asking him about the volume, and he said this. That's a great question. If it applies, 100% I would. I'm fortunate to have been on the ground floor with that, talking about the volume and having experienced it with my team. I know when it works and when it doesn't work. There are certain situations where you absolutely want to use it, and there are certain situations where it's better not to do it on a regular stage with blue screen. There are just certain situations where you just want to go outside. You just have to know and trust your team for when is the right time to use it. So it sounds like he's conscious about it.
That's the important part. Because I was going to mention that before you read that part. Because trust your team. That's why I was bringing up Filoni or Favreau executive producing, which he's going to be part of hiring the team, right? And if they're smart, and then Favreau, who I trust and knows what he's doing, he's going to give him a strong cinematographer, okay, and a director of photography that's going to complement what Dave wants, and hopefully push back on things and saying this is not going to look right. We need to do this. You know what I mean? And if they are truly a collaborative effort, even though Dave's a director and he's in charge, I don't think he's vain enough to not take the advice on his first movie, really directing actual movie directing from the skilled professionals that they have around him.
Yeah, people
and in that article he says that.
Yeah, I was gonna say people don't give cinematographers enough credit. They have such an impact on the look of a film. You know, it takes the talent of a director to fulfill that vision, but the vision really comes from the cinematographer. And so I agree with that.
Cinematographer for
the editor, the director's biggest part, the director's most important roles for me. This is what I've seen in what movies that are great and directors are great. The two biggest and most important things they do is bring out the right depth and emotion out of the actors in the scene, and after the movie's done in the editing, that's where their two biggest. If they're in charge of everything. It's just a director that's just hired on, and they're not like Nolan. Obviously, he's in the director for everything. They're the editor's room. Lucas, was in the editing room for everything. So when you have those kind of directors that are good and in charge of everything, Zack Snyder. Okay, I know people are going to grow, but the editing room is the most important thing, and that can make or break a movie too. And that's where director's vision, I think, truly comes in. So I don't think they need to be the best visionary behind the camera, as long as they have if they have a good team around.
Well, I like this comment that Akaro put here. Do you guys think the volume is more difficult for very talented directors to use? Or do you think, could it be easier for someone like Dave Filoni to use? Because you brought up earlier, Lunga, he kind of started in his journey of directing live action with the volume. So I think that's a great question is, will this work better for Dave Filoni?
I don't think it's that. I think it's in that article when they talk to Spielberg, because he says that, he says that the amount of prep time that is needed to build these three-dimensional sets. And then it's the volume. The thing is,
not change it.
Yeah,
with biggest Star Wars, that might be a good thing. Can't change things on the dot,
Yeah. but I think that's the issue because he talks about takes so very early on in the prep schedule. I was sitting there with production designers and virtual art department who was building these 3-dimensional sets and spaces that were going to be the screens, and we use virtual reality headsets to fly around. So they have to like in advance think about what the shot's going to look like before they actually get to see and start shooting it.
Well, and that's what's good about Dave Filoni is he's worked with this, but do you guys think he's talented enough to do the James Cameron thing?
I will say,
James Cameron going like, hey, no, here's
there's
how
also more time in the movie.
Yeah, there is a lot more time.
Yeah, I'll say the way he did Ahsoka is actually really good, and I think it's really cool. He made every shot in animation first. Obviously not full renders, but that's a great way to do it, right? This guy's great at animation. I mean, you can say what you want about his storytelling. His cinematography skills when it comes to animation is gorgeous, right? If you've seen his drawings on all that. So he played it really smart where he did basically create everything in animation first the way he wanted to. And I'm assuming from there, he sent it over to the preppers for this technology. And I think that could work fine for a movie, but not if it's used all the time. I think the best times it's used so far are on reflective shots and cockpit shots. Every other time, I don't think it's worth it.
Even the cockpit shots, though, I mean,
I think they look pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when it comes to... Go ahead.
I might concede it might be better for the cockpit to actually use the volume, because I remember seeing with like Mando season 1, specifically Dave Filoni directing, he was like sitting in a chair and the whole room was like stars and space and everything, and that looked beautiful. So stuff like that is immersive, and I think for the actors too, that's one of the biggest benefits of the volume is when the prequels were coming out. All the actors, excluding Samuel Jackson, were basically saying, this is really hard to do because you're telling me there's this flying Watto in front of me trying to, haggle, and I don't see him, but I have to interact with him. When the Chancellor of Valorum, the actor, he was like, oh, George put up a piece of paper in front of me and said, that's Natalie Portman. That's who you're talking to. So there's a clear, stark difference in the way of doing things like that, because the actors really didn't give the best performances in the prequels. That's a commonly known thing.
Yeah, which has changed big time now with mocap, because now you have
absolutely,
and so the act now there in front of you,
and they can imagine a little bit more, I would think. But with the volume, that imagination is gone. You can actually see everything that your director is telling you have to see. Ewan McGregor was saying when he was walking around Camino, he was just walking around with a person holding up a stick to be a Kaminoan and a bunch of green screen shit and had to imagine everything. Some of that stuff feels lifeless, and that's where the volume can really come in and be helpful. But there's clearly a lot of limits to the volume as well. You can't film in every single direction that you would want to on an actual set that you would try to do with the volume. And so I think, especially if it comes to the movie making, if Dave Filoni, when he does the Star Wars movie, I think him out of everybody is going to use the volume the most when it comes to the Star Wars movie. I don't feel like that James do what?
I said it might be a budget thing for him. He might have to.
But see, I don't even know if that the money they're going to give James Mangold for his Star Wars film is probably the exact same amount of money they're going to give Dave Filoni for his Star Wars.
Come on, let's be honest, Papa Memes. Depending on the set, creating a set is not that expensive compared to
I guess digital effects and stuff. I mean, they're getting cheaper, but yeah, I get your point.
Yeah, you can bump a bunch of paper mache and create a painting. You can make a set look banging. Okay, so I mean, you don't. I mean, we were bringing up Cloud City. He was a fucking bread maker, right? He was running with a bread maker. So I mean, you can. Okay, the lightsabers were what parts of old cameras, right? Flash.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and I'm hyperbole. I think I'm still not convinced Dave Filoni's going to get a full feature film, but that's just my own.
Wait, what? Take. You don't think he's actually going to get like the movie made?
He will get one way before Taika Waititi or Ryan Johnson comes back.
Yeah, okay, that's not certainly because that's Taika Waititi and Ryan
number
Johnson.
One over there.
Okay, listen. After all the things that has happened with these announced films, I feel like Dave Filoni's would be the one who's most likely to not happen or to get brought down to a feature film on Disney+.
No, he's their golden child right now. he is who they're putting all their eggs in a basket right now. Is
Yeah,
because
yeah.
But in the eyes of
Kathy's
Disney,
well, fuck Disney though. They're not. I mean,
That's-
they have
that's
control, but
their
they don't
control.
control everything.
no, they
control
don't. But they
everything.
make the final decision.
Okay, but even then, it is not like the final decision that they would have over like Marvel. There's a clear difference
think
between
there-
the way
I
Kathleen
think-
Kennedy's running it and Kevin Feige's running it.
I again, you guys can maybe say I'm crazy, or maybe you agree with me. I don't know, but I really think, because we said, they still are making weird ass announcements, and we still don't see the consistency that we hope for. Right? I'm not saying that they're miraculously suddenly consistent. Right? However, I think they're trying to shift away from, because all the issues they've had, right, with writers and directors, and we bring this person in. Oh, now this person's not doing it. Now this person's not. I think they're trying to stay in house with the team they built with the Mandalorians. I think they're going to try to utilize the Filonis, the Fumiyawas, the Bryce Dallas Howards, the Deborah Chows. I think they're going to try to use those to be their core directors for the movies. I think that's what we're going to see.
You think they're going to
even
get
James
Except for Mangold. I mean, if Mangold, right, but yeah.
But
Or
hang on,
Sean
he
Bean.
did-
with the exception of
I mean,
Jones, and now he's doing this other thing. You're right. They are trying to do things a little bit more in house. Of look at what they did with the directors from season 1 of The Mandalorian, and look who's still around. Deborah Chow didn't do any more Mandalorian, but she did an entire Kenobi series. Robert Rodriguez came in for Mando season 2, got his own series with Book of Boba Fett. Peter Ramsey came back for more stuff as well. Taika Waititi is apparently getting his own Star Wars film that will probably never be made. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are the spearheads of almost everything, but Kathy, specifically her, brought them together. And Dave Filoni, I think pretty much since Lucasfilm took over, Kathy looked at him and was like, okay, look, I get it. You're what they call the next George Lucas. That's entirely wrong, by the way. He will never be the next George Lucas, but whatever. He is the guy that learned from George. So what they did is they were like, okay, you want to do some live action. This guy's name is Rian Johnson. He's a great director. This movie's going to.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be.
And it was great, some say. Some would say. Some would be wrong, though. But still, Dave Filoni has gone from just watching the stuff on set and doing his own little film school to working with people in The Mandalorian season 1. And all those people in season 1 went on to do other things. And then Dave went from just a director and a writer in season 1 and being an executive producer to doing the same thing in season 2, same thing in season 3. Oh, by the way, now he's doing it with Book of Boba Fett. And now him and, Jon Favreau have a little bit of influence into Kenobi. And you know what? We got to see how good Dave is. Let's give him his own series on Ahsoka where he's going to write it and he's going to be the showrunner of it. Now that he has that experience, yes, technically the next step is him getting his own fucking movie. And now that's coming. But specifically with Dave Filoni, the question is he still going to be able to deliver? Because this has been a short time frame, guys. He really went from animation to live action within a fucking blink. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's great. I'm just saying that
there's a lot of
him
weight.
Using there's a lot of weight, yes. And with the volume, he's going to be the most experienced person with the volume. His film is going to happen. He is going to use the volume on the film. And I think that is going to be the biggest focal point in terms of what we can and can't expect from the volume going forward. Because I don't think James Mangold and the lady who directed the Marvels or whatever the hell her name is, I don't think they're going to use. Sure. I don't think they're going to use the volume as much as Dave is. So I do think that in terms of budget, yes, he's probably going to have the cheapest film because I do think he is going to utilize the volume in a lot of ways because he's there. He knows what it's like. He's had the most experience with it than any of these other directors that are going to come into work. He has more experience with the volume than Taika Waititi does. And Taika even used it for Thor, Love and Thunder. And that was horrible. But it looked good. I didn't see anything in that movie with it where I was like, oh, this looks really bad, blah, blah, blah. It was just a horribly written film and horribly directed as well.
Yeah. I want to talk about your kind of earlier point about keeping everything close counter in-house. I think that would be a phenomenal thing if it successfully goes through properly all the way to the movies. I think that's needed. The problem is we're not really seeing that yet. Sure, Dave Filoni's getting a movie, but the other two movies are people who haven't been working with Lucasfilm yet. And so I don't know. I mean,
those were announced. Weren't those all announced like during
At the
Mando
same
season
time.
1?
Wait,
pretty
what?
much. I mean,
No,
when was
they were
Mangold announced?
last year.
Mangold's and Ray's was announced in April of, I think April, whenever Star Wars Celebration was.
It was
April.
in Celebration in London in April of this
Now,
year.
we knew.
I thought there was
Lindelof-
talk of Mangold long before that. I thought.
There was talk, but remember he was supposed to be doing
because he was doing Indiana
he was
Jones.
supposed to be
So there
doing
was
a Boba
rumor
Fett
with
movie.
that. So I mean, well, there you go. I mean, actually, to my point, he made Indiana Jones, and now they're giving him a Star Wars movie. So that's kind of in house, if you want to call it that. So I don't know. I think that would be great because we've seen the consequences of things being too scattered and too clustered, and then Disney coming in. We've seen the consequences of that, and I pray to God that they've learned and they've realized and they've taken a few steps back. I wish they didn't announce all these things back in the day, which were clearly never going to happen in the first place. But I maybe it's me being naive. I hope they've learned from that and are restructuring, because I think that's the biggest thing Lucasfilm needs is some restructuring. Whether that's Kathleen Kennedy stays or they get in some new eyes and everything, it needs to happen. And they could be doing that behind closed doors.
Well, they can't get rid of Kathy and try to restructure. Unfortunately, that'd be way too much pressure on whoever's going to come.
That's
in
why Dave Filoni
to
becomes
replace her.
president. Didn't you hear?
Yeah, great. Yeah, the guy who has no experience running a company. Or
Everyone knows it's Favreau.
And Favreau could do it. But
Yeah, he
the
could.
thing with Favreau is that he is an outside the bubble kind of movie maker. I mean,
Does
this
he
guy
want to? And I don't think so.
Yeah,
That's the
I don't
argument
think
everyone
he would.
has. He's a writer. He's a writer.
Well,
That's what he
it's
wants.
more-
To do.
I
He's a
don't think
writer,
he
he's
would
an
want
actor,
to.
he's a producer, he's a director. He actually had ties to the mob back in the day. Back in the 90s, he fucked over a guy named Christopher Moltisanti.
Listen.
Moltisanti.
He made Swingers, right? I mean, that's right
What
there.
a great
That's
fucking
all
movie.
that-
God, I love you.
I like
John
I like
Favreau.
Okaro's point once again. I know I'm simping for Okaro.
Oh, we know you said for Okaro.
I know, man. Bring up that comment because I think it's a really good point. Right? Lucasfilm has not
Do you
had
not have
success
access,
in-
motherfucker?
I don't. It didn't. We've been through this, man. I've done all the steps in the order.
Except
that
the
you guys
link.
told me
I'm
to.
like, which one? Lucasfilm hasn't had any theatrical success in years. After Indy 5, I can't see Disney being too enthusiastic for an inexperienced live-action director to helm a flagship film. He's got a great point. I mean, Indy 5, I think, is the biggest flop in the box office.
It
that
was worse than
Lucasfilm had.
Solo, right? Had to have.
Yeah, by far.
I mean,
they really lost money on that. I mean,
Lunga,
it's
you're
quite
muted.
sad.
But how much of that is that people just didn't really care about Indy? They didn't really want an Indy 5. I mean, I think that played a bigger part than anything.
No,
I don't
I
think
know,
people
but
really
the
cared.
point is, Lucasfilm messed up big time. Whoever's fault it was, it shouldn't have been made, and it should have been made for the cost it was made at. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Okaro. Very cool.
You gotta hold him out.
Dead silence.
Slut. You fucking slut.
What can I say?
No, well, first of all, yes, the Dave Filoni movie is coming. That is going to
Okay,
be
sorry.
the next,
Sorry.
the next one.
I was doom and gloom. Palpa memes was coming out of my
No,
shit.
you can be
I
doom and
apologize.
gloom about
Disney Plus is losing Disney $5 trillion a month.
Yes.
Yeah, he is right on some of these things. Like Disney Plus is not in the greatest state, and I know Twitter doesn't like to hear this in the Star Wars fandom, but like I'm very active in the Disney world in a way. Not Disney World, the park, but like the Disney community and everything like that. A lot of people are turned off by Disney because of the perceived woke agenda and all that shit. And whether you believe it or not, that is a very real thing that's going on with them. The company's stock is at its lowest point than it's been since 2014. I mean, it's in
what's hurting them?
rough state. But what's hurting them?
It's they're not prioritizing what made them, right? What made them was their high quality animated movies, right? That's what made them. They're putting out some here and there, but what are they focusing on? At Disney, it's not Lucasfilm, just Disney.
No, it's all
Just
live action remakes.
Live action remakes of their catalog, right?
Yep.
That just almost one after another, they're just not good. People don't give a shit. and
for some org are rumored it's the Frozen and then
yeah,
another
Frozen
one.
supposedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's
But it's like
creatively
coming out like an
bankrupt.
animated one.
But there's controversy after each one. You know, you got the Snow White one with what's her face, you know, pulling a Brie Larson and just at least Brie, I understood what she was trying to say, even if I didn't necessarily wholeheartedly agree. But
Oh no, this lady is
Renee.
Oh my god.
Well, she's
I can't
she's
stand
a
her.
kid, dude. What is she like? Like
She's
25 or
20.
something? I mean, she's
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's a
she
fucking
comes off
kid, man.
So fucking like
Oh my
she's
gosh.
like
Because she's a
in the
kid.
1700s and very
She's raised on social media and she's a child. That's why.
Yeah, I hate the modern generation Lunga. If you want to talk about the good
Yeah,
old days,
Boomer
I'm
only
here
coming
for
out
it.
once again.
Don't forget it. I know Lunga is damn near, if not double my age. But I am, for all intents and purposes, the oldest person on the podcast. All right, I'm smoking a cigar as we speak right now. So I'm
people
quite
smoke
old.
cigars. That's fine. No,
It's not
just
a
your
common
view
thing anymore.
It's just your views are antiquated, Mr. Only. It's just this, you know.
God, I miss the
You know.
80s.
God, I miss when women stayed in the kitchen.
The oldest one now.
And now they're equal. And now they can vote. Holy shit. Oh my god, I miss
Like,
Reagan.
God damn that women's suffrage.
Which one?
Man.
All of them. Oh my god. No, I don't want to get on a sexist tangent about how men have ruined everything. Because I, as a trans female, can understand. Oh, that's the girl's name. Rachel
Zegler, yeah.
Thank you there. Thank you very much. Man, there's another
Brain dead.
I was about to spit out Renee Zellweger. I'm like, no, completely different actress.
That's where my mind went to. Thank you very much, Tom. He said, would Robert Eggers be a good director for a movie? I don't know if I said that right, but shout out to Robert. I've seen Lighthouse, and I think
Northman,
The
Witch, Hansel and
He'd be good, but
Gretel.
he would not be good for Star
I
Wars.
haven't watched Northman.
Yeah,
I really haven't wanted to.
He might be
But
kind of cool
the
for
Lighthouse-
some Old Republic movie.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's too good of a director for Lucasfilm, though. He's one of those directors who's very involved in the process from start to finish. Like honestly, at the end of the day, I think that is something I really would like for Lucasfilm to gamble on in the future. Is kind of like what Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings. You spend years in pre-production.
Just
and
film
just
it
setting
all at
things
once.
up.
Yeah.
You film everything
And
at
then
once. You get all the sets made. You plan.
Yeah, but he
everything
has
out.
talked about that he would never. It killed him. He said
Well,
it was horrible.
What about this
Well,
guy?
no, not for Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, I don't think that's the one that killed him. What killed Peter Jackson was The Hobbit. Is because they didn't give him time to actually delay the film because what's that? How do you say his name? Guillermo del Toro or whatever the fuck.
Guillermo del Toro.
I'll just call him Del.
Italian,
When Del was doing it, they had a set date. He left, and then they brought Peter Jackson in, and he was like, "Can you delay it?" And they're like, "No." And so he had 2 to 3 films to make just off the bat coming in, kind of like poor old J.J. Abrams when it came to Rise of Skywalker. So I really do think, though, that is a great idea for Lucasfilm going forward. Of like, even if you're just doing a 2-movie thing or even a trilogy of movies, plan it. Plan it give it to one guy named James Cameron.
That's been there,
and let him just fucking do it. I'm on this James Cameron high. There are a certain amount of people I want to make Star Wars movies right now. One of them's name is James Cameron. I want to give him 3 to 6 films. I don't give a fuck how many, truth be told. I want to give him to Jon Favreau, and then I want to give George Lucas
Vince Gilligan. Come on, stop.
Oh,
you wanted Vince Gilligan.
Yes. I could get a Vince Gilligan Star Wars series called Bad Breaking or something like that. Oh,
he also did Hancock. Don't forget.
Hancock was fine. I don't give a fuck.
It was a movie.
Come on, we all know the Lord and Savior Zack Snyder needs to come in and make a Star Wars movie. We know.
I love
this guy says, Zach Riggs. He says, "What if Goldman wrote and directed a Star Wars movie?" I think if Goldman did it, it would be titled "Why Women Are
Last
Better
Jedi
Than
Part
Men."
2.
No, Goldman would accept the job and then quit on the spot and then hire Ryan Johnson.
I actually
Without
think he
those
would.
meetings.
I think every week he would stream and then like tell people, he'd be like, "So I have a new scoop for the new movie coming out.
Scoop is
This
on me.
guy who's writing it talks on the block is that he's bringing back Snoke, and he like looks at the live chat. All right, no one likes that. Actually, the writer and the director of the movie is watching our stream, so whatever feedback you guys have, you can impact the future movie.
You know what? Only it's funny you say that because you remember whenever the Rise of Skywalker actual leaks were coming out, like months upon months upon, from the.
I had a
the movie's
friend
release.
who was visited by Lucasfilm lawyers. They showed
No,
up to his
I
house.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, shout out to my boy.
Yeah, he knows. He knows.
Years.
Yeah, I remember he told me. I was like, no fucking way. But anyways, so these were all coming out on Reddit, right? One time at a time. Yet somehow this leaker also managed to keep up with all of the reshoots and cut things that were happening through the production. Like this is months before the movie came out. And so I'm curious. I'm like, I wonder if this is like J.J. Abrams, Mary Ann, someone at the lead, right? Maybe Kathleen Kennedy posting on Reddit to see the reactions for what they're doing. And then they're like, yeah, people on over here on Star Wars Leaks, they don't really like that. Let's switch the
I still believe it was John Boyega. I'm convinced.
That'd be crazy. No, there are people who have done that though at Disney. And like there's like a news channel called Walt Disney World News Today. A lot of people don't like them in the Disney community, but they really got a lot of like scoops and stuff, and like Bob Chapek would watch their shows and stuff. So Disney is kind of active in that stuff. Oh yeah, it was Jedi Paxis. The Paxis.
Jedi Paxi. How did he know all the reshoots and cut content as it was getting cut, though? That's what I say.
Probably one of the office people who
I can see Chris Terrio doing it.
I don't know. I do remember that one of my subscribers, he started working for Lucasfilm, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago. And he sent me a message. He was like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I'm in." And I was like, "Who the fuck are you?" And he's like, "I've been a long time subscriber of the channel. I work at Lucasfilm now. Here's my job." And then like 6 to 8 months later go by, and he goes, "Holy shit, I just met Kathleen Kennedy." I was like, "How was that?" He was like, "It was fine. I just said hi and bye." He's like, "Nothing to really write home about." He's like, "But I don't think any of the Doomcock theories are right." He's like, "She seems like just a normal white woman living in like San Francisco, going about her day."
I remember you told us that story a long time ago, and you said the thing that he pointed out was like he had this just vision of Kathleen Kennedy because of all the social controversy around her, and then he meets her, wherever, and she's just a normal businesswoman.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the only person I know.
Interesting little tidbit. The word Paxis is actually a UK term. I mean, it's a Latin word, but UK children have used it to express immunity from being caught, such as games like Pit and Bulldog.
Oh, it's Chris Terrio.
I don't give a fuck. UK calls the.
I mean, John Boyega is British.
Fuck. Okay, they call gasoline. No, you want to have some fish and chips, and
he felt he was immune from being caught because he's John Boyega. He's Finn.
Yeah, don't act like we forgot that you left your script underneath the bed.
Oh, that pissed me off so much when they threw the blame on him for that. What the fuck? Like, are you serious? You know what a load of BS that was? Because whatever. Anyways, sorry.
You guys want to look at the Spielberg person who? You wanted to get into the tweets? I was going to read the.
We're over an hour. We can start wrapping it up.
Let's get into the tweets. All right, so time for this week in Star Wars Twitter. All right, so this week in Star Wars Twitter, we got this IMDb DB ratings for the season finales of all the Star Wars live action shows. Pausing it to take a look here. Let's go from the worst to the best. Worst is a 7.7. It is everyone's favorite, The Book of Boba Fett. After that, surprisingly, Ahsoka at an 8 out of 10. Then we have Mando season 3, 8.4, tied with Kenobi at 8.4. Then after that, we get into the peak Star Wars. We get into the nines. Andor season finale is at a 9.1. Mandalorian season 1 is at a 9.2. And then the highest is Mando season 2 at a 9.8. Quite shocking, honestly. It doesn't surprise me that like the Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 are so high up there. I will say I was very surprised to see Ahsoka so low in the list.
Well, okay, so I'm shocked that Ahsoka.
It's an 8 out of 10, though. Let's put some context to this here.
So right. You're so right, but it is surprising because the way people reacted to Ahsoka would make you think it was the greatest thing since God.
I'm shocked that it was lower than the Mandalorian season 3 finale. But the others do make sense. Obi-Wan Kenobi was a very, very emotional ending. Andor and is phenomenal. The Mandalorian season 1 ending was shocking. And then obviously the Mandalorian season 2, The Rescue with Luke Skywalker. Come on. So to me, it makes sense except for the Mandalorian season.
Let's look at the top 3. What those last episodes had. Season 2 had fucking Luke Skywalker. Okay, and people lost their shit. Okay, season 1 had the first Yoda being we've ever seen with no hint of it. And we're like, what? Minds were blown. Okay, when we saw a baby Yoda. Okay, blown. Andor ended with a shot at the Death Star. You know, it kind of brought it all home. I know you can run on all you want.
That was great.
But when you think about how good the show was, and it ties it up with the shot of the Death Star from being built that we see, coming together, which we've never seen it being built except for like this, scaffolding kind of look. Those things had something that went in that specific episode that made it rewatchable, and people loved it so much because of those specific things.
Ahsoka had Dathomir.
Yeah. Because
everyone knows that planet.
Luke Skywalker, a Yoda baby, and the Death Star. What do those tie into? The original trilogies. Dathomir does not.
Well, the Yoda baby didn't show up at the very end of the season.
Yeah, but he was going away. The whole premise.
Or are you saying just in general because he was there?
Season 1.
But it wasn't just that
he showed up in the first episode. Or are you just saying because he was there for the finale, it brought that?
Yeah.
Ambition? I think it's just because, Darksaber, that was introduced, so.
Yeah, but we didn't know that until like the last scene, I think, honestly.
But yeah. Let me trade that because that was the last episode, was the Darksaber, him coming out of the TIE fighter with the Darksaber.
Yeah.
Right.
It's on the picture right there.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, I'm not staring at the.
I'm convinced those numbers are skewed for Mando 3. There's no way.
Okay.
Mando 3.
That's another
Book of Boba Fett should not have 7.7. Sorry, that is a 1.
Mando season 3. I've seen Mando season 3 maybe 2 or 3 times now because I've always been like, I should, make a video on this or something like that. But then I was homeless for like 8 months, so I was like, I guess I can't make a video on this. Mando season 3 wasn't that bad. Okay, like it wasn't great, but
dude,
I think it's better than Kenobi. I think
It kept me engaged. It was just I felt like the problem I had with Mando season 3 is every time I was like getting engaged, they would hit me with an episode that made me go fuck, and then it hooked me again, and then hit me with an episode that made me go fuck. That's what happened to me with Mando season 3. Ahsoka, I didn't have that. I was engaged the entire time, so I didn't have these episodes that went and stopped the momentum for me completely. That was the problem I had with season 3. And again, I still say this: if you took those episodes that you wrongly put in Book of Boba Fett and had that as the first episode 1 and 2 of season 3, the whole season would have been a completely different feel and look.
Because what happened in Book of Boba Fett for the story of the Mandalorian was atrocious, and a Star Wars.
Yeah, they really.
I'm talking about that. If you open season 3 with that scene of Mando going into that,
the episode 5 of Book of Bob was good. It was great.
If that was episode 1 of season 3, Mando,
and then episode 2
that would have set the tone.
Luke Skywalker sending Baby Yoda back on an X-wing empty during a freaking place where a war is taking place. Yeah, no.
You could have they could have fixed that. That could have been in the middle. That could have been in the middle. That wouldn't have been episode 2. That would have been like episode 4 or something.
It's freaking ridiculous. But I see what you're saying.
Before we go on to the next tweet, I just want to say my boy from The Sopranos, also who played Paulie in the Rocky films, Burt Young, died. I'm only shouting him out because he was in The Sopranos.
Thank you.
Rest in peace. You're very welcome.
Right, because that's what people remember Burt Young from is The Sopranos. Motherfucker, he's Paulie, goddammit, okay?
He killed a man, 2 of them, and then smoked a cigarette while he had lung cancer. If that's not balls...
He was in like 2 episodes, I think.
And he was like... it, okay? He fucking killed it.
That's what he did the whole episode.
He killed 2 guys with it. Oh my god, I fucking love The Sopranos. Maybe I should make a Sopranos only channel because goddamn, could I talk about Junior? I fucking love Junior. He's so fucking
Uncle
funny.
June. Yeah, he was my favorite character.
Uncle
Anyway,
June,
we're digressing.
Who's the president? John F. Kennedy. Fucking love that shit. This tweet says, this being the final shot of the Force Awakens trailer, I legitimately united the Star Wars fan base unlike ever before. Taking me back to the hype for this film back in 2015, it still truly remains unmatched for me. I have been preaching this for a while. When people say Star Wars is alive and it's doing fine, I point to 2015 to 2017. That was peak Star Wars fandom time, bro. I mean, everybody and their mother was excited and interested. For some reason, this Force Awakens trailer awoken the Star Wars fandom that had been asleep for 10 fucking years. And I miss it. I really do miss this time. I really miss 2015. I mean, I came up, anyone who's been a long time follower of me, I came up through Instagram, at least through Star Wars. And when it was 2015 to 2016, Star Wars Instagram, we were thriving. We were all getting 1,000+ followers a day. We were making money. We were doing good. And that's why, like, I feel, I guess in a sense, like elitist when it comes to like understanding the Star Wars fandom, because I have an Instagram account with 200,000 followers. I have a YouTube channel with 60,000 followers. Like I've seen how the fandom reacts to things, and I have a large metric to use for it.
Don't slow down. Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back there, buddy.
No, I'm
No.
I
mean,
let the humor flow. God damn it.
Trying to let it flow through you. Yeah, no, 2015 was great. 2016, and I think at the end of the day, you really do have to look at the movies. Like The Force Awakens and Rogue One, you may not love them like you would love some of the other Star Wars movies, even like compared to Revenge of the Sith. But Force Awakens was received so well that the hype for the next Star Wars movie was uncontrollable. You couldn't have fucked it up. And then Rian Johnson fucked it up. But Rogue One carried that hype in a very unique way. It came out a year after The Force Awakens, and it still felt good to be a Star Wars fan. Like, you left the theaters and you're like, yeah, that was fun. I can't wait to see what comes next. Like,
it made over $1 billion still. A side story, right?
It's so surprising how like these two movies really like start Star Wars off on a good foot. And I hate to beat a dead horse here, but The Last Jedi fucked everything up. All the hype and everything just completely plummeted.
Yeah, but Star Wars only. That's the fault of the fans for not understanding good storytelling. You don't understand, only.
Yeah, you tell those Twitter fucking pricks that they don't know what it's like to live in a blue collar town where people actually give a fuck about things that aren't on Twitter. You go tell that to other people in fucking rural Alabama and see what they say to that shit. Oh, I didn't understand Last Jedi. I don't give a fuck about Last Jedi. That's what they're gonna say. God, I miss 2015.
But I mean, I will say this. Like, I mean, I did. My computer was Millennium Falcon. That one Millennium Falcon two monitor thing. And even after Force Awakens. Well, I know nowadays people like to have this whole dour thing about the sequels because everything that happened. But I would say, even though it was a New Hope rehash, we and pretty much everyone kind of knew that, I still feel that after The Force Awakens came out and lead up into The Last Jedi, people were generally happy. They were happy with Star Wars. And again, this is when we say the opposite. Those Last Jedi fucking trailers, Mr. fucking subvert your expectations. What he did with those fucking trailers, like, oh, this is what you think you're gonna get, but fuck you. And he subverted our expectations with those fucking trailers. We thought we were getting something, and it was turned to be something completely different, and it killed it. But yeah, but it was high, dude. You're right. At that time during The Force Awakens, after, even though it wasn't a spectacular movie, it was good. It was solid. It was a good entry right into this new era of Star Wars.
What it needed to do.
Right.
I think that is the most underrated and underappreciated Star Wars movie in some ways. About when it came out and the time that it came out, you really had to think about the perception of Star Wars. And this film really did deliver in the sense of, hey, no. Star Wars is back. And we're not going to, I'm really fearful for the future because, like, I don't think we can recapture the same feeling that we had from The Force Awakens again. I really don't think. I think because of
it can,
Jedi,
but it won't be. It won't be with the next movie coming up. It won't be with we're bring. It's not going to be this. Oh, look, we're going to movies again since after the Rise of Skywalker, the first big movie. That's not going to be the hype. If they make a successful movie, okay, and by success, I'm not talking about just box office. Okay, I'm talking about where generally fans are coming out talking about. Okay, the next movie following up, that's the one where you might see the hype return. But return of the hype.
The foundation needs to be built back up.
Right, but we need a movie. We need a movie that box office is obviously important. We need the box office, right? Because that's how people generally gauge success. Okay, but aside from that, it needs to reinvigorate fans. We need to, at the very least, jaded fans to say it wasn't that bad. If you can get jaded fans to say it wasn't that bad, okay, it must be a good movie. Then the next movie, then you could see the hype return.
I want to talk about this tweet because I just remember, like, I was 15 years old, when Force Awakens came out, and there was just something so special about that. The scene I remember most distinctively, I know you guys are gonna laugh at me, and fair enough, is Rey's speeder scene, right, where she's going across the horizon, and it's night out, it's nighttime, bold colors from the sunset, and her speeder just had a very distinct sound. And that, for some reasons, just stuck in my head, all the time.
I mean, you were a child. Why would we laugh at you? You were literally a child.
No, what I'm saying now, Lunga, is that still plays through my head.
Yeah. I'm sure if you saw Book of Boba Fett when you were 15, you would have loved the Vespas back then.
Yeah, I'm not going to discuss that. But no, there was something so special about everyone at my school, right? Everyone was fucking talking about this. Everyone, right? It was great time for YouTubers, Instagram, whatever the hell. It was the perfect time to be a Star Wars fan. And man, I miss it. I'm so nostalgic for that time because the amount of hope that we all collectively had, it was fun talking to virtually anyone online about Star Wars. It was fun.
Yeah.
That's missing now. I was also mourning it was like the 5-year anniversary of the destruction of my original trilogy VHS tapes by my ex-wife when we were separating, because in 2010 she was angry at me and she decided to just destroy him. And of course the first one she did was Empire Strikes Back. Was the first one she destroyed.
And Lunga, I know a guy who can take care of her for you.
No, she is still the mother of my children. We're in a good place now.
Okay. Well, good. As long as you have like connections to her, because if you didn't,
yes,
that's a death penalty right there. All right. Next tweet is what if I told you Anakin and Padme's non-charismatic and stilted romance, in episode 2 is actually to the film's attention's benefit as an adaptation of mythological concepts.
All right. It's been fun, guys. Thank you.
Dan is my homie. I'm not gonna say anything bad. You can have a director have something that's intentional. That doesn't mean it's good. All right.
And I've always that's another thing that's like new to me that I fucking hate about people in the Star Wars fandom, where they're like, well, Hayden being cringe and Attack of the Clones is actually very intentional. I mean, hey, weren't you?
You just didn't get it. It wasn't bad. It was meant to be bad.
Exactly. It was meant to be shitty. It's like, no, this isn't
right.
None of this is good. I did a whole Star Wars marathon watch through in like the past week or so. I'm on Force Awakens right now. Only one I skipped was Solo. And oh my God, watching Attack of the Clones again, it's horrible. Like it is really, really bad. Like when people say, the prequels really aren't that bad, they're not talking about Attack of the Clones. They're not talking about the Phantom Menace. They're talking about Revenge of the Sith. It's the only one they can really even talk about. But like, oh my God, Attack of the Clones, the love stuff, it's fucking horrible. And you're gonna sit here and tell me, well, actually, it was stylistically designed to be that way. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, you can use the meltdown thing. I don't give a fuck. This is truth. This is facts. This shit sucked.
And he also obviously have never listened to George. George can't write love scenes. We know that. And the whole point of it was to show the trauma that he went through, right? That's all trauma. That's how he became Darth Vader. That's all it was. That's all it was. It was badly written trauma. Okay, that's what it was.
He was trying to make it like Romeo and Juliet. Like,
he's trying to replace his mom. He had mommy issues. Okay, let's just be fair.
That's another scene from Attack of the Clones that I kind of forgot about. The scene where like his mom dies. No one talks about that. I've been in this fandom a long fucking time. I cannot remember the last time anyone has posted about that scene, mentioned that scene, talked about that. I mean, that scene is horrible and it's uncomfortable. She's like, Annie?
She wasn't the strongest actress either.
She was, but it made it was so uncomfortable too, because it's like, why did they tie her up? Like, were they killing her? Were they God forbid, doing that to her too? Like, what are we doing here, George? What the fuck are we doing here?
It's supposed to be a brutal death and a brutal realization for Anakin. That's the tide of turn for his arc, for him turning to the dark side. As he sees,
and the prequel fan love is realized. Stop making excuses for it.
I'm giving
you guys. Do you guys? I mean, you may be too young for this, but you guys remember those old Saturday Night Live skits, Lowered Expectations?
Yeah.
That's what's happened with these movies. Okay,
yeah,
is that the expectations are so low that people just got to make excuses of why it's good or why you don't. Oh no, this is all right. This is what they actually meant. No, it's not what they actually meant. You're just making excuses because you want an excuse for why you like something that sucks.
Well, here's the thing, Lunga. I don't remember that.
Look it. I like things that suck. I like things that suck too. I watched the prequels. I like things that suck. However, I will say it sucked. I like watching it, but it sucked. At least I'll admit it sucked. Okay.
In my defense, Lunga, I will admit episode 9 is pretty bad.
Yeah.
We're getting that out, but
I mean, I have my guilty pleasures.
It's not that bad.
I do like characters in episode 9 more than anything. I think the characters are good in it.
When Kylo turned back to Ben and that whole scene, I do like it.
Did you like?
I enjoy it. I do enjoy that scene. I especially when you watch the little things where they put I need a hero playing behind it when he's going through his fight to get there. Okay, yeah. So I do like that scene. I thought it was cool, and I really like Adam Driver, and I think he was, for me, the sequel trilogy. She was the standout of the sequel trilogy as an actor and even a character. So seeing him turn and turn back to light and become Ben, it was really cool. So I really enjoyed that scene. The movie fucking sucks, bro. it's just
best scene is Rey being brought into the Skywalker family.
Best scene for what? Best scene among the shitty shit, or best scene among Star Wars?
Best scene.
Thank you for mentioning the largest turd of the mound of elephant shit that was the Rise of Skywalker. Thank you.
It was a good scene.
So who are you? Who are you, young lady? And she like looks
Skywalker.
at the sky, and she sees dead Carrie Fisher show up. Luke Skywalker with a fucking.
Can we mention they did a dead of a dead person because it was a Force ghost of a dead person that was dead.
I love what is it? Red Letter Media they said about it. I think it was Rich where he was like, "Boy, they really bet on the wrong person to live the longest amongst the sequel actors." Because boy, did they get that wrong. Because like the first one was about Harrison Ford, Han Solo. Second one, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. Third one's supposed to be about Carrie Fisher, Leia, and I think everyone forgot that Carrie used to party and do a lot of fucking coke back in the goddamn day, and that don't give you a long life, kids. I'll tell you right now.
Can we also mention that the character-wise, the character of the three that lived the longest was the one that the actor died. Because Luke and Han were dead before Leia died.
That's where they fucked up. I think that's what they fucked up with fucking even the Solo movie. They're like, hey, we're making a Han Solo movie and it's starting Alden Ehrenreich. It's not Harrison Ford. And it's like, wait, Han Solo? Yeah.
The only reason people
die like two
Harrison
movies
Ford.
ago?
No.
Yeah, well, I mean, fuck, I wanted Han Solo as Harrison Ford again. I didn't want freaking Alden.
I don't know. I was okay with the recast. And I've been seeing a lot of shit talking about Billie Lourdes, and I think people have been talking about how she's a horrible actress. I don't think she's a horrible actress. Where do people get? I've been seeing a lot of this.
She's not a great
chatter.
She's
nothing amazing. She would play a perfect young Leia.
Yeah,
and that's what it was in episode 9.
And let's be honest here. We are amongst friends. Carrie Fisher was not a great actress. Okay?
Was she, or was the director not the greatest?
No. Carrie Fisher is not that great of an actress.
I thought she did pretty damn good, especially as a teenager in those movies. She did really good.
For sure. I mean, she has her highs and everything, but
it helps when you have a 30-year-old Harrison Ford banging you between scenes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she got a lot of acting advice from him. Face buried in the fucking pillow, ankles behind her fucking neck. Yeah. Shut up! You're gonna make my wife here. Fucking Harrison Ford. He's a great man, but a piece of shit nonetheless. He was 30 years old.
I'm gonna bang this 18-year-old.
So many questions.
Disgusting. Anyways,
we should wrap it up though. We're at an hour and a half at this point.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a 45-minute show tops, but here we are.
Well, then Star Wars only showed up, and next thing you know, it's that's what happens.
Meltdowns, man.
Well, that is all we have to say. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're still watching, please leave a like on the stream. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. If you're watching this through my channel, Star Wars Only channel, watch on Chatooine. Subscribe to Chatooine, the official YouTube channel. We have, I think, 480 subscribers, so we're almost there at 500. Get us to that point, and we will be sky's the limit. All right, the show's got a lot of bright futures ahead of us. Sorry, the stream wasn't as well thought out, but next week we're doing Mando season 3, getting back to schedule. We're on our good shit. All right, I promise. Any parting words for the delinquents at home?
No, just what you said. We're like 20 away from 500. So yeah, spread the word.
Move over. Yeah.
Please do. Well, thank you guys for watching. I'm Star Wars Only. We were here on chat.
Wow.